Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday, and we are live backstage. I am Cindy Rowe with Cindy Rowe Marketing, and I have a fun guest I am excited to chat with. Mike, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. So tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day. I've got my green on. I got my lucky shirt. You can't really see it, but um, and also my favorite, March Madness. So it's like the double whammy, I guess, for tomorrow. Mike, thanks for joining me again. So, what is it that you do?
So I run, along with a couple other partners, we run a branch of Academy Mortgage Corporation, which is a very large corporation. There's actually over 100 branches nationwide. We are the only ones within Illinois, though, which is located actually in Rockford, Illinois. But we do mortgages. Been doing it for about 20 something years. So
Wonderful. So, why did you get into the industry of lending money?
I kind of fell into it. It was again, I just gotten out of college. I went to NIU, and right when I graduated, I actually went into the car business, and it took me about 3 months to realize I did not want to do that. It was just there was so much dead time just standing, and that was just not going to be my thing. And then from there, kind of did some job searching, worked over at a bank. We actually got hired on with absolutely no experience, and they had foreseen this huge rate drop. So they hired all these loan officers, and the rates never dropped. And we all got canned within 2 months, all of us. And it was like, wow, I'm just not good at this, am I? So then I found another company which I worked at that kind of got me into the mortgage business, and then from there ended up here. So
Yeah, and I suppose over the 20 years, you've seen quite a wide range of
oh,
different activity. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the history and
yeah. So, being in 20 years, we definitely saw, the biggest thing I think everybody remembers is the 2008, 2009 crash when everything just went belly up and through the subprime market, the stated income loans and things like that. That was definitely the most interesting time. It was nerve wracking to say the least. And I had a lot of friends that were in that industry, got out of the business. We kind of maintained. But that was the scariest time because it affected a lot of people's lives. People lost homes, people lost living. Their jobs, everything, and that was kind of getting through that and being able to survive and still do loans is really kind of what told me that I think this is going to be your career and this is what you're going to keep doing. The rates have always gone up and down. That's always going to happen. That's not going to be anything that makes you wonder or get you out of the business or thing like that. But the housing crash that made you second guess yourself and make sure, am I in this for the long haul? So,
yeah, I was actually a vice president of marketing for a bank during that time, and
mhm.
it was not a fun place to be at all.
Yeah,
And I didn't have to deal with the customers or the housing crisis, but
yeah.
the
There,
tension of the bank atmosphere and the financial industry alone, it was crazy.
yeah, there was moments there where they would literally, the companies would tell us we're suspending rates. And we're like, well, you mean like for 20 minutes? Like, no, we can't do loans right now. So you have a pipeline of customers. Hey, what's going on with my loan? And you're just nothing. There's nothing. And the economy, the world had almost shut down in the lending industry for a while there. And things got back to normal and things got tougher and guidelines got tighter and they should have. I mean, there was a point there when it was just too easy to get a loan, and that was
Yeah.
wrong, and we were on both sides of that. And it was tough on our side because the problem is we're doing loans where we're like, I just doesn't seem right. But the problem is you couldn't tell somebody that they can't have a loan if they qualified for that loan in that program. So your kind of hands are tied, and you're just like, here you go. It's a stated income loan. Really don't think you make what you're telling me you're making, but you got to give them that loan. And that was tough, and it ended up having consequences, big consequences. So
Yeah. And I worked for a community bank, and so we had pretty good regulations, I think,
mhm,
in-house that
mhm.
helped us in that.
Yeah,
But then what came after that and everything from above and changed a lot of other
yeah,
things. So
yeah.
So mortgages you can get pretty much on every corner, just like a Walgreens. So
Yeah,
what is your company? How is it different than everybody else,
sure.
and what makes you stand apart from the
Yeah.
crowd?
Well, the biggest thing I always sell myself on is availability. You're going to you've seen all the commercials for the rocket ship mortgages and things like that. But the reality, if when you're shopping for a home, you want to be able to get a hold of your mortgage lender as well as your realtor at any notice, whether you're going to text, call, anything like that. And I'm literally working 7 days a week, answering texts. Hey, I just found this house. What's my payment on this one? That's not going to happen with your online lender. And then we also offer quite a few more programs than those big companies, such as down payment assistance. Those are typically local programs versus, national programs. So that part, we really kind of have a niche in the market with those. We're actually in Illinois, our branch specifically is one of the leaders in the down payment assistance program. So that does help us, kind of sets us aside. But more than anything, experience and availability, just being the willing to answer that phone, or respond to a text at 9 o'clock at night on a Sunday. We do that, and we kind of strive to do that, which really in our area, a lot of the realtors know we do that. So we get a lot of referral business because of that as well. So.
Yeah, so that was going to be my next question. Like, how do people find you? What's the best way that you've been able to get out there and market yourself? I mean, obviously, I'm a marketing person, so
Yep.
I'm curious on what has worked
Sure.
well for you and your company being here
Yeah.
and being here for a while, but also being in
Sure.
the industry for so long.
It sounds cliche, but old-fashioned referrals, it really, really works. Past clients, for us being in this 20 years, past clients really help our business. We've made excellent, referral partners within the real estate community. And then we do marketing. I mean, I'm pretty big on social media as far as, how we're going to market. You have to do that. It has to be part of your game, whether, Google or, Facebook. We kind of dabble in all of it. Even LinkedIn, we'll do some of that just to kind of keep the name recognition out there. We don't get too much into TV commercials, radio. We don't do too much of that. We've kind of found in our industry that doesn't seem to be the driving force unless you're doing it, like one of those big national companies, but that's huge budget lines, of course. But, referrals and social media seems to be it. We, of course, keep in touch with our past clients because we think that's very important. And, we'll have text campaigns, email campaigns throughout the years that really, ask for referrals. And in our industry, you probably know this as well, you have to ask for referrals. If you don't ask for referrals, you're not going to get a referrals, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right? So that's a big part of our industry. So, and especially our model.
Do you do a lot of like local networking? Has that work been beneficial, or is it more specialized as far as, networking with the people that will be referring the loans to you?
Yeah. So I have two other partners that are part of this particular branch. One is very big in one of the weekly networking branches. I have not been able to do too much of that yet. It just seems more the time commitment of doing that once a week. Sometimes it's not possible. It's worked for him very well. So everybody's a little different on that. I am involved on different committees within my real estate network, though. But that's a little bit seems to be more, monthly meetings and things like that. But the more popular weekly ones, I haven't gotten involved in those too much.
Yeah, referrals have been a huge part of the way I've grown my business as well, and even being in marketing. I mean, I feel like word of mouth and those referrals, like those are the best. Like that, you're hitting the spot when other people refer you. And it's even better when they've never used your services and they still refer you. So, I mean, when you can get to that point, I think you've done such a great job to build up to that point.
Yeah.
So what kind of tools or systems have you kind of put into place to make your office run smoothly? And now having two other partners, I imagine your personalities might be a little bit different. The dynamic might be a little bit different. So kind of give me a lowdown on things that you've put into place that make your work.
Yeah,
Well,
it's funny because if my other two partners heard you say we have different personalities, they would be cracking up right now because we probably definitely do. So, but some of our staff is so important, and it's not just on-site staff. Our corporate office is out of Salt Lake City, Utah, and they have done a great job along with our branch just to put certain people in different spots. We have an entire marketing division that they do nothing but market. They're not out there looking for business or clients. They're just there to help us as the loan officers do our marketing, essentially for us. So that's been huge. And then having a support staff, as loans come in so that we're not doing everything on our own, it really just kind of makes the process a very, very smooth process, and that's the key. We couldn't do it without our support staff.
and is that staff that you have hired or that corporate?
Half and half. Some of we have. Some of them will work for not just our branch, but they'll work for more of a regional, maybe 10 offices or so. And again, when your only job is to market, it makes it kind of easy that you have time. You can work on 10 branches at the same time, and that's all you have to really do.
Right. So I forgot to mention there was somebody that commented that it was a great interview and you were awesome. So you've got a fan out
All
there. They're a Facebook user, so they haven't agreed to the StreamYard
Okay.
stuff, but that's pretty cool. I like to see that. So you have been obviously you said in the business for 20 years, this specific location around 8 or so years. You've seen a lot. Like, what is happening now? I
Mhm.
mean, we've just gone through, and we were talking before we started, the craziness of last year and how I
Yeah.
sold my house for a lot more than I bought it for a
Yeah.
few years before. But like, how is like, kind of talk about that, like what's these last couple of years and what now is
Yeah.
like, or what the future might hold? Because I know there's a lot of questions on that.
Sure. Well, COVID's been interesting to say the least. And it changed. I mean, it didn't just change the restaurant industry. It changed everything. We stayed busy throughout the COVID year because rates were low. But what it changed is just the model. Our industry used to be one where we would meet with clients all the time. It was just common. They come in, we talk to them. And with COVID, when that kind of happened, we saw less and less face-to-face contact. And that trend has kind of kept going. Not that we won't meet with them, we will meet with anybody we can, but people are seeing with technology, they seem to be, more agreeable to doing things by text or phone calls. We always talk to them. We always want to talk to them, but they're doing it through email and text and phones, and aren't really that necessarily have to come in to meet with you for the first or second time. And then sometimes the first time you meet them is when you're sitting down at a closing table. So that's kind of changed things a little bit. I'm a people person, so I kind of always like to meet people as well. So I definitely like to at least see them at the closing. So that's kind of changed our industry a little bit. As far as kind of like what's going on now, of course, gas prices are high, inflation is hurting us. None of that's going to be good for interest rates. That's typically always going to drive interest rates up. So normally when interest rates go up, that's going to hurt the housing industry. It's definitely going to hurt refinances because you're not going to refinance unless it makes sense, or perhaps you need to cash out on your home. And we have seen some of that. But I don't see the industry as far as really taking a tank or anything like that because of the higher rates, only because we have a supply and demand scenario. And the demand for housing is high and the supply for housing is still low. So when you have those two factors, that's going to drive prices up. Okay. Now, some of those prices, we talked about this a little before we started the show. I'm shocked, even being in the industry, of seeing what some of these prices are going for. But again, supply and demand, people are going to buy it because they need housing. So that's been a little shocking. The only thing, and again, I don't see this dying down as long as you have low inventory. I don't see anything crashing. The only way that would happen is if gas prices keep going up, inflation keeps going up, and we get into a true recession. God forbid a war or anything like that happen. Then you could see massive foreclosures. That's a long cycle for that to ever happen, though. If that happened, then you could see a surplus of inventory again, and that would make prices come down, and maybe rates come down as well. But that's a long cycle. That's a lot of ifs. For right now, I would, there are people on the fence just saying, well, I'm just going to wait for prices to come down. You might be waiting for a long time. So, but if you
Yeah.
want to sell, you're in a good market.
So the pricing, like, and this is the question that it keeps popping up, is like,
Mhm.
how is that really going to affect things down the road, like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, when things are getting appraised a little bit differently, or from what they were purchased, or even 2 years, right? Because
Yeah.
maybe things change. Obviously, the market is so fluid anyway. But do you have any like advice on that, like, or how we should prepare if we?
Well, yeah, that could be tough because that's what happened in 08, 09, right? We had these houses, people were buying houses. It was so easy to get a loan.
Right.
These houses just appreciated. And if that happens again, where you're buying houses for 300, 5 years from now, they're only worth 200 to 250, you're going to be over the loan to value, what we call there. But and the problem is a lot of people end up walking from that. Nobody wants to have a $300,000 loan on a house that's worth $200,000.
Right.
And that could cause big problems. Again, I don't foresee that happening. And if it did happen, it would be a long cycle. There would have to be, I think, a lot of, foreclosures and things, like a lot of things would have to happen for you to see a huge decrease like that. But it could happen. It definitely
Yeah.
could.
Well, I mean, because I experienced, like we talked about earlier, a huge gain on
Hmm. Sure.
mine, and I was blown away that the house was even near worth that.
Hmm.
But yeah, it made me kind of, wow, okay, I hope things are good for her when she goes to
Yeah.
try to sell it, but
Right.
not my problem, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's my heart, so I kind of worry about those things. But
Sure. Sure.
now, I'm sure you work with a lot of different people, and financial backgrounds or whatever. But if somebody's looking to get into a new home, what's some advice that you would give them as far as preparing for that purchase, and
Hmm.
preparing for working with you,
Hmm.
to get them in the right
Sure.
path, I
Yeah.
guess.
So obviously, the very first step, and you'll talk to whether it's your realtor or anybody, they're going to tell you need to get pre-approved. Okay. I always say you should take another step. When you talk to us, we're getting you pre-approved. We're using, some very basic factors. We're going to look at your gross monthly income. We're going to look at your debts, but we're only looking at debts that show up on a credit report. And then we're going to figure out how much of a house you could spend. What you need to do on your own, though, is you need to do your own budget, because there's a lot of things the lender's not looking at. We're not looking at your cable bill, your cell phone bill, gas, electric, water, groceries, how many subscriptions you have. Do you work out? How much do you spend when you work out? We're not looking at those things. You only know those things. And you have to understand those things and say, can I afford a payment of this amount? What are gas prices right now? How much am I spending on gas right now versus how much I used to spend on gas? Those things are very, very important. And those are things that are not considered by your lender. And those things you need to consider on your own to make sure that you are comfortable. It doesn't matter what the lender can get you approved for. It matters what you feel like you should be spending a month and what you can afford. You never want to be house poor. If you hear that term, yeah, you're making your mortgage payment, but you can't go out and do anything. That's not fun. That's not a good way to live. I can go out to eat maybe once a month and can't do anything, can't take a vacation. That's not a way to live. So I always say, hey, listen, this is what you're approved for. That does not mean that's what you should go up and look for. Sit down with a piece of paper, take your bank statements, circle everything you spent that month, add it up and say, what can I really spend on a house, and kind of go from there.
You said you mentioned a program, down payment something, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
down payment assistance. Yeah. So yeah, down payment grants. Yeah. So we work with IDA, which is the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And we've worked with them pretty much since we've been in this business. And we are one of the, in the Rockford area in Illinois, our branch is one of the leaders in offering those programs as far as the number that we offer a year. But they make it an absolute great way to put less money down when you buy your house. And it's not just for first-time home buyers. It used to be for first-time home buyers only. You do not have to be a first-time home buyer, but they offer grants anywhere between $6,000 and $10,000, and you go right through us, and we approve it for the loan and the grant all at kind of the same time. And some of the restrictions for doing that, they're very loose on those. As far as you can, in this area, you can make up to about 102,000 a year and still qualify for the grants.
Wow.
Where a lot of other states are nowhere near that. They will use a median income of $40,000-$50,000. And if you make over that, you don't qualify. Illinois has done a really good job with the way that they present their programs. So,
wow, we're succeeding in one way, huh?
we are, yes, we are. Yes. Go Illinois.
So Mr. Wallen, Mike, he
Hey,
is
Mike.
saying, what's up? So actually, cool fact, Mike was on my show a year ago today because I wore the same exact shirt in his interview. And I actually wore a green hat too.
Well, I'll give you a funny thing here. Mike's daughter, if you see that picture right there,
Yeah.
right there. So that is Rockford Lutheran's state title from cheerleading. Both our daughters were on the same team. They won that. So what's up, Mike?
That's awesome. I love that. It's so cool. So sports I see in the background too is super important to you. You mentioned earlier that you are also a coach. So I love that idea of, I mean, we actually talked about, part of being an owner of your business is that you have that flexibility. So kind of talk a little bit about that, like what that means to you and in your quality of life.
Sure.
Because it is hard too to find that balance. And you even talked about it earlier where you can't really commit to a weekly networking thing. Talk about that.
It is, my son keeps me young. I love baseball. I love all sports. He plays basketball and baseball, but so throughout the years, I've been able to have the opportunity to coach both with him. Currently, just coaching baseball now, but to be able to do that, to kind of run your own business. I get to take off early when I need to, and I've had to transition my business. I typically go to work at like 5:30 in the morning now, and I'll leave about 2:33. In this business, you're always answering your phone anyways, but that gives me enough time to kind of get ready, go to baseball practice, be available, not just for him, but all the kids that are on the team. And I've done it for about the last 6 years. I think I've helped out with all the teams he's been on. And I still try to stay active and, working out when I go. And though I seem to get hurt more times than I work out anymore, but I try. But yeah, that's been probably the coolest thing about running your business is that you're on your own clock. You're definitely working more than 40 hours, but it's your 40 hours that you decide that you're going to work on. So it's nice.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give somebody that is looking to go into your industry as far as, becoming a mortgage broker or any of the financial side of it?
It's an enjoyable industry. It really is. You have to be outgoing, be willing to start on the ground floor, learn the business, get out there, network. But it is really, I loved it. It's changed from the time that I got into this compared to like what they go through now. It's a lot easier, I think, now than when we originally started. But it's a good industry, and it's a networking industry, just like anything else. You just have to get out there and be willing to ask for business. If you're just going to go on social media and, promote ads and things like that, it's not that won't get it done. It just won't. You just really have to be a go-getter, get out there, get on committees. Again, learn the business. The business itself is really not that hard. Our business is truly marketing is really what it is.
Is there a certain skill set that you think one should have if they're considering going into your type of business?
I say sales and marketing background because the math part of it, you don't have to be a math genius to figure out a mortgage. The reality, you just do not have to be that. You would think, finance background. But the people that have the most success when we go to our sales rallies and our sales meetings, and the people that have always the best numbers and stuff, that they are the most outgoing, marketing minded people. The people that seem to be on the finance side always seem to be on the back end, doing a little bit more different things versus originating.
Yeah. So, can you kind of explain maybe one of your favorite moments of the past 20 years, or an awesome success story that you've had that just really stands out in your mind?
Yeah, I actually had this story on one of my websites as far as like my profile, and it was about 10, 12 years ago, and it was kind of it was an interesting story, to the fact that sometimes we get in any business you do. Sometimes you do it so much you don't really realize the impact you have on people's lives. Okay, especially in the mortgage, and whether you're a realtor or a mortgage person. We always use, we're doing helping out with the American dream. That's home ownership, right? But as you every month goes by, maybe doing 10, 12, 13 loans, helping people, it kind of just becomes monotonous. You're not thinking about what that. Well, one time I had a closing, and it was a single woman, and we got to the closing, and she was just in tears, and she had made me presents and things like that at the closing. And I'm supposed to be doing this for you. You chose me. You're my client. I'm not like your client. And then she kind of told me, a background. Won't share her story, but her background of stories and divorce, and how she was raising her kids by herself, and what home ownership meant. And it kind of just hit me like, wow, you're like doing good things here. This is something to be proud of. Your industry is something to be proud of. Whether you help 3 people in a month or 20 people in a month, you're doing something good. And that was kind of my light bulb of, I really like this, and this is going to be my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that she brought you something too.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing. Yeah,
unexpected.
yeah,
Well, I told you before, this goes really fast and we're nearing the end. And so I
yep.
want to give you an opportunity, to share a little bit about your business, and how people can find you. So floor is
Yeah.
yours.
Sure, absolutely. Again, we work with Academy Mortgage Corp. Been doing it for 20 years. But again, as we talked about when we started started the show, is there's so many different places that you could get a mortgage. You can you go on the computer now, and you're going to get an ad for a mortgage somewhere, and probably in the mail, on TV, anything like that. Again, the biggest thing that we have, is, again, just availability. We will answer our phone calls when you need something. The simplest question you have, we try to really make sure it's a very, very smooth process. The reality of mortgages, the rates are not going to be that different from one place to another. That's just not how rates work. We all get our mortgages and our rates and our loans and money all from the same place. Essentially, it's from the government. And so the rates are just not going to be that different. But who you work with, the service you're getting, that's truly going to be what sets us apart. We love what we do. We love seeing you get to closing. We really try to make sure that it is the smoothest process you can ever have as well. So
I have another question.
sure.
What's the process, the closing process time frame
Mhm.
typically?
Typically, we always say about 30 days, from a time you have an accepted contract. So if we're talking about purchasing a home, you get an accepted offer, you get it over to your lender. Typically a few days go by, because you're going to do a home inspection to make sure you are going to proceed with the house. Then from there, they typically give you 30 days, because you got to remember, there's a lot of things happening in the background that we're doing. And not to mention, you have a seller, and if that seller lives there, nobody wants 20 days and pack up all their stuff and things like that. So we typically say 30 days, is safe.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I learned quite a bit, and you were a pleasure to have on my show. Um, and yeah, if you guys want to, if you're watching this live or on the replay, I put his website and his Facebook there. You can find him there. Give him a call if you are looking for a mortgage or just have questions. I think he'd be a great resource for that. So thank you so much, Mike. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.